Indeed. All right, Erol Morkoc is Vice Chairman of Republican Overseas. Erol, look, there's two ways of looking at this. I mean, I think Asher Gould makes a reasonable point here that that this whole the microphone will be cut as soon as you finish speaking. That will massively play to Biden's doddering nature, won't it?
At first glance, I would concur with that. However, there's another school of thought here, and it's that yes, the Democrat Party is sending forth this, candidate who they've zombified and pumped full of drugs and whatnot. But on the other side of the screen, you have Trump. And Trump, yes, he's got those one-liners, and yes, that plays well to his base. But it does make him sometimes seem unapproachable to those moderates. So I've talked to some Democrat strategists who are actually furious about this because they said all we've done now is create a situation where Donald Trump is forced to be perceived as presidential. Now, if Donald Trump can rearrange his insults to fit inside this new sort of green light, red light situation, I think it'll be fine. But ultimately, this is Joe Biden's debate to lose. And Donald Trump said any place, anytime, anywhere, and he meant it. And if you look at perhaps some of the other side of the strategy, there's a lot of fear here that Donald Trump won't be able to make any, glaring errors. And he already has effectively, in a lot of people's minds, a lead in this election. So while it will neuter some of his classic lines and delivery, it might end up working in his favor with the moderates or whatever who won't be able to see him go off train.
It might be worse though if he has to think about it. It's like if you're a footballer, it's easier to hit a moving ball than one that's actually just stuck on the ground. And because he hasn't got to think and it will just be instinctual, his comebacks, they're better than when he has to think about it. It'll ruin the comeback.
Well, that's a fair point, and I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out. But it would ruin the comeback. It would ruin the cadence. However, also Biden won't be able to cut him off.
Well, he never would, though, would he? He'd just stand there grinning. He wouldn't actually.
Well, he might yell. He might just yell and wave his fists, and that still would interrupt. I think Joe Biden's going to have a tough time without a teleprompter here as well.
Yeah.
This is putting Biden on the spot. Yes, this doesn't favor Trump on paper. But it never was going to.
I'm watching some of the footage of Joe Biden. I mean, this is a doddering old fart, isn't it?
It's embarrassing. He definitely isn't. I mean, if we could have Joe Biden of 4 years ago, maybe. I mean, that guy compared to the guy now is a genius. Or if we could have his son, who's the smartest guy, if we could switch them out, that'd be even better. But unfortunately, the country's stuck with this gentleman at least until the election, and it hasn't done well for how the Chinese and Iranians are perceiving us. It hasn't done well for how the Russians have perceived us, and that weakness personified has led to a lot of...
It's often said that the number one reason that Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine was Joe Biden's weakness in Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, I mean
real people have died as a result of that, a lot of them.
They saw the gaping lack of leadership, and contrast that with Donald Trump, who maybe had the madman theory in the sense, well, you don't know what this guy's going to do, so best not to attack.
He doesn't know what he's going to do.
And with Joe Biden, you know that he's going to do nothing, or he's going to make a statement. Don't cross this line. Okay, well, there's a helicopter. I mean, there's people stuffed in the wheel wells as you flee Afghanistan. Yeah. It's not inspiring confidence anywhere.
Do you think they will, I mean, I know this probably sounds bad, but will they do something like put something to stimulate him a bit, because he'll just stand there, won't it? It could be really terrible. Could be the end of Joe Biden. This, if he really just stands there without saying anything, just still.
That's a real fear. I mean, it's a national security fear. It would be really terrible to see it in any side of it. But I think that the fact that they have him for 6 days or so down in Camp David, they're trying to coach him 100%. There are great drugs. I mean, if you need somebody to perform for an hour or 2 hours, there's many studies.
There's a very simple and legal thing to do, which is pump him full of caffeine.
What? Nixon was on a lot of drugs, wasn't he? He was on a lot of stimulants. I know that.
Well, keep in mind, this is America, and half the kids here are taking Adderall for college exams, which is essentially just synthesized methamphetamine. So it's very accessible to get your hands on that level of things as a student.
They don't want to give him too much of that, though.
Well, can
you imagine? He ends up taking his top off and singing "Put Your Hands Up for Detroit." I mean, that would be.
I could see it. I mean, the guy's a madman. He definitely, is not to be underestimated in the sense that...
we're watching him falling up the stairs. I mean, nobody falls up the stairs.
Should he have a medical? to deal with all these problems? The drug tests, you know, Trump's asked for drug tests apparently, but shouldn't he have a medical? Shouldn't it all be in the public domain?
You would think so. It certainly maybe comes under some, I guess, doctor-patient confidentiality. But, you know, Trump offered to take a drug test also. Joe Biden refused to take the drug test. So what does that tell you? If you were going to have a boxing match and one guy said, yeah, let's have a drug test, the other guy said, no, I'm not participating. Yeah. Well, okay, that guy's probably on drugs.
I'll tell you the other problem with Joe Biden, he can't even borrow Hunter's urine, can he? And pass it off as
a make things worse.
He has the entire
Hunter's urine has a street value.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, well, smartest guy that he knows. So,
is Obama running things here, though, for Biden? Is he the real man pulling the strings?
I mean,
literally in some cases.
A lot of people, I mean, there's that famous clip, right, where Obama basically says, I would love to be president for another 4 years with an earpiece into the White House. I think his people have had a huge influence. Obama, like him or hate him, had a very good apparatus. And the people that were in that administration, you see them all through the Biden administration. And when you see Biden and Trump, or Biden and Obama together, you notice everybody goes to Obama. No, nobody's going to Biden and asking.
Part of the problem is here. I mean, it's just sad because he's just too old. And you know, nobody wants to be ageist. Nobody wants to be racist or sexist or any of these things. But you know, it's a very demanding job, and the reason that older people retire is because they are no longer physically or intellectually capable, or both, of doing such a high-pressure job. I mean, this job would take it out of a 35-year-old. The idea that somebody who is now suffering from whatever mental decline he's suffering from would be capable of doing this job well is ludicrous.
It's not his age, though, because Trump would be fine. It's his actual mental state.
Yeah, sure. Well, some people age better than others,
exactly.
don't they?
Yeah, I was going to say it. Some people have a different reaction to age, and you don't want to be ageist. You don't want to look at a hard point and say, here's where you're not able to compete. But the fact of the matter is, Joe Biden wouldn't be able to be hired in any of the government agencies that he's overseeing. He's unqualified to competitively deal with day-to-day challenges, and you see that with the resounding gaps in leadership, whether it's at the border or with the real economy for real people. And so I think that's sort of the core.
I want to ask you this question, Errol, which might seem stupid. How important is the president in the presidency? And let me, before you laugh at that and say that, what a bonkers question. Look, we have a system in the United Kingdom of having neutral civil servants officially. The United States of America, the president appoints thousands, tens of thousands of officials. So in a sense, in the United Kingdom, when the Prime Minister changes, you know, there is a significant change, right? But in the United States of America, the administration itself is a thing that exists and that is real, that changes. And so my point is there an argument that goes, well, OK, re-electing Joe Biden keeps these, say, 25,000 or whatever it is, 100,000 officials in post, and the fact that he's not very good doesn't matter that much because the rest of the infrastructure around him and the rest of political appointments are good. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, and it's a very strong point, and I would do you one further and say that you had a uniparty of Democrats and Republicans until Trump came. Mm-hmm. So we did, you know, and you have 50% of the people in these government agencies are appointed, and 50% are sort of lifetime people.
Right.
So when you actually do win the presidency, you can reorganize the country very effectively.
Yes.
And you would have a lot of overlap. Like, it was amusing, but you know, George Bush kept a lot of people that Clinton had, yes, and Obama didn't keep anybody that Bush had. So and then all of a sudden Trump comes in, it's so different. So this election, if it goes Biden's way, you'll get more of the same because he's not really running the country. His people are running the country. He's the best zombie candidate you could have. But if Trump wins...
Yeah, and I suppose then it begs the question, if the business model is to have a zombie candidate, then maybe it doesn't matter that he's a zombie.
Exactly
it's ideal. There's a reason why they haven't swapped him out for Gavin Newsom or somebody who's more qualified. Those are actual real people, and the entire apparatus would change.
So he's a puppet, mate. He's just a puppet.
Yes.
Is it like Ronald Reagan was a puppet?
In some respect, a lot of people played puppet roles.
I think the difference is with Reagan. Reagan declined towards the end, but I never got the impression that they were egregiously running somebody for election that they knew was incapable. Reagan declined after the election. Nobody wanted him to go in as a well, whatever it is, dribbling wreck.
Yeah, I mean that obviously was a interesting part of U.S. history, and that is a good point to bring up, because there is historical precedent when somebody has lost their mental faculties towards the end, and that was a shame, and it's a shame that it's happening now.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, Erol Morkoc, thank you so much. He is the Vice Chairman of Republicans Overseas. The debate's at 2 a.m.